Here, Democrats. All right, our top news story of the day before we fucking continue with anything else is going to be the two unavailable videos are hidden. Democrats are signaling a deal that is fast approaching on the infrastructure. Okay. Gavin Newsom has even talked about it for some fucking weird reason. Don't know why. What the fuck does Gavin know about these sorts of processes, these sorts of deals? Obviously, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, but you know, this is the main thing. There's like some January 6th updates that are kind of interesting as well. You know, we might get into that in a little bit too. So that's where we're at. That's what we're up to. That's what we're doing. Okay. Hold on. What the fuck? Oh, shit. All right. Yeah. I know. Linux is incredible. All right, let's get started.
Washington now, after months of negotiations, Democrats could be just days away from reaching a deal on President Biden's economic plan. Our chief White House correspondent, Cecilia Vega, is at the White House with the latest on all of that. Good morning, Cecilia.
Hey, Amy, good morning to you. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says they seem to be about 90% of the way there to reaching a deal. I got to tell you, they all seem to be closer to a deal on this than they've been so far in these negotiations. One source is telling us there could be a House vote on this bipartisan infrastructure plan. That's traditional infrastructure like roads and bridges you're seeing there as soon as Wednesday. So yesterday, the president hosted these two key senators to Delaware, his home there. Chuck Schumer, you see him, Joe Manchin. Manchin, of course, is one of these key moderate holdouts. The White House called the discussion productive. This would be a really big win for President Biden if they can pull this off. But there have been some major concessions in order to get moderates and progressives on board. Right there, you see them. The overall price tag slashed to $3.5 trillion, from $3.5 trillion to just under $2 trillion. Proposals like tuition-free community college scrapped. The amount of paid family leave.
Why? The question I have here is why? Like, for example, paid family leave going from 12 weeks to 4 weeks. The question I have is, like, why would you do that? What is the reason for it? It's not government spending or anything like that. So what could be the fucking reason why paid family leave is dropped from 12 weeks to 4 weeks? Like, what is the reason? The reason is that this is a corporate oligopoly. A corporate oligarchy, sorry, and that these negotiations do not revolve around what's best for the American public, but instead revolve around what's best for the American corporations, most of which aren't even like fully American corporations and just simply claim to be American corporations, yet park all of their assets in countries that are considered legal tax havens like Ireland or even offshore tax havens. So a completely ridiculous piece of the negotiation. And the only reason why I am hyper focusing on that, other than like the lower price tag, for example, is because it is precisely the best representation of this deal, of this quote unquote deal being spoiled and sullied, not for legitimate reasons, but instead for absolutely frivolous corporate bullshit. Okay. Ireland isn't a tax haven anymore, bruv. Your states are. That's true. Ireland was historically a tax haven, but now it's no longer going to be one because there are what do you call it here? By the way, a lot of notifications didn't go out today because I started earlier than I usually do. So retweet this if you want people to know. Anyway, how does it go from 6 trillion to 2 trillion and progressives can't do anything about it with 90 plus representatives? Yeah, no picture today. I'm sorry. I don't have any way of like literally fucking downloading a photo, and then I didn't want to go through that. the process. Apple owed 13 billion euro in tax to Ireland, and Ireland said, keep it. We don't want it. So, what the fuck? Does going live sooner affect the TTV notifications? Well, everyone on Twitch follows a million different accounts. So, if you have a consistent schedule where you log in every day at the same fucking time, then, you know, most people are getting the notifications. But if you change it, it depends on how many people you follow and like how many people on your follow list are going live in a different hour or anything like that. So if you just follow me, then a lot of times you'll be fine. You'll see that. If you don't, then you won't. Sometimes you won't get the notification delivered because they don't want to fucking, you know, cloud your noties with a million different notifications, you know? Apparently, it's also Hasan Tweet Selfie Day. I did not know that. But that's what's going on. I still am unsure as to like what sparks the selfie day. I don't know what like the reason is usually, but it's nice to see. You know? There we go. So, motherfucker serving looks on Hostwit. Yeah, that's true. See, I said it right. Okay, something I find insane about the U.S. economy is that big business hires illegal immigrants to keep wages low, and then big business donate to conservatives that hate rhetoric against illegal immigrants to win elections. Well, the reason for why you do that is the anti-immigrant rhetoric serves the corporations that continue to hire undocumented immigrants at low wages. They don't want documented immigrants to be, or they don't want undocumented immigrants to become documented part of the documented labor force, and that's precisely why we have immigration law that makes it impossible. Okay, that's literally the point. Historically speaking, that is exactly how immigration law has worked side by side with corporate interests in this country.
Reduced. The White House had really ramped up the pressure, Amy, in recent days to get a deal done on this. They want something to show before the president leaves for this big European trip on Thursday. He's got this big climate summit in Glasgow, Scotland. He wants to be able to point, Amy, to a big win back home there.
And Cecilia, Democrats now signaling a new way to pay for all of this?
Yeah, they are. And you know this because Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema, she's been opposed to President Biden's plan to tax big corporations, raise taxes on big corporations. So Democrats are now looking at other avenues, including what they're calling this wealth tax. This would be taxing the nation's billionaires. Amy, they also say they want to tax overseas earnings and increase IRS enforcement.
Cecilia Vega at the White House. Thank you, Cecilia.
They're positioning against, which Kyrsten Sinema literally is like against raising the corporate tax. Like, they're positioning against raising the corporate tax to, like, pre-Trump levels. Despite the fact that Kyrsten Sinema personally voted against the Trump tax cuts when, you know, Democrats were not in power, is, of course, yet another perfect example of hypocrisy, obviously. And it completely shows what her values are. And it's also proof that I'm fucking right, okay? I am right when I say Democrats don't care about this shit. Democrats literally, when they're in a position of power, want to fuck it up because their real interests lie with the corporate benefactors rather than the American people. Okay? That is the reality. There is no better representation of that than like Kyrsten Sinema doing the work for the rest of the Democratic Party, doing God's work there by playing the spoiler role, her and Joe Manchin. Because a lot of these Democrats literally do not want this. Like, there are plenty of Democrats who straight up are like, yeah, well, my constituents would be hurt by this. Okay? My constituents, like my real constituents, I mean. My actual constituents I give a fuck about. The wealthy corporations, those people, right? So, that is the That's basically what's going on here. It's basically Kirsten Sinema's role, that she is here. Low-key conspiracy theory, to be honest. Really? That's a conspiracy theory to you? That, like, you think that, like, Joe Lieberman is a standalone individual and has always been? You think that, like, suspiciously there's always... It doesn't matter if we have 60 fucking Democratic senators. It doesn't matter if we have 50 Democratic senators, but somehow always Democrats, when they're not in a position of power, have like these bold legislative ideas that they advocate for, whether it be Medicare for fucking all, or whether it be, pushing back against Trump's tax cuts. But when they are in a position of power, they literally reverse that. That's a conspiracy to you. It's a conspiracy in the sense that they are conspiring, but it's not a conspiracy theory. It just means you're a fucking dumbass if you can't see exactly what I'm saying to you. And it's not just me. Like, if you watch like a Ezra Klein or a neoliberal like that, they'll describe this to you. They'll say the exact same shit. They'll just basically say, Democrats always have a loud and progressive and bold agenda when they're not in a position of power, but significantly dial it back surprisingly. The difference between me and someone like, an Ezra Klein or a Matty Iglesias is that I don't say, that's really surprising. Why are they doing this? I simply cannot comprehend why they would cuck their own agenda like this. I'm basically just saying that they are cucking their own agenda on purpose. That is the job. Their job is to cuck their own agenda because their own agenda is not with the American public. Their real agenda is getting reelected and maintaining the same grip of power that corporations of the wealthy have had in this country, but just from the Democratic side. That's precisely what the fuck this is. Okay? Wasn't Lieberman the one who vetoed the public option for Obamacare? Yeah, Lieberman was the standalone person. There's always like one or two guys in the Democratic Party. Doesn't matter how many fucking votes we have, okay, within the Democratic Party. There's always like some guy that suspiciously is able to tank it individually. You know what I mean? It's always like one vote short. Oops.
Well, hey there.
How will this help them get reelected, though? They are sabotaging the programs on purpose by not funding them. They don't care. It doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. Like, individually, some of the Democrats who are fearful about their position, that are not, like, protected, they care, okay? But that's it. Their reelection chances do not revolve around, like, actively doing legislation that helps their constituencies. I mean, think about it. Republicans do this too, by the way. That's not all that different. What, like Donald Trump ran on a boatload of different items, okay? Some of which were absolutely ridiculous. For example, jailing Hillary Clinton. If I'm president, I will jail Hillary Clinton. That's what Donald Trump said. Is Hillary Clinton in jail? No, she's not in fucking jail. Why is she not in jail? Because he was never going to do that. Also, how the fuck would he do that? That's a different story. Right? Like, I'm going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. That didn't fucking happen, right? What did happen, however, the signature legislative accomplishment of the Trump administration was tax cuts for the corporations and tax cuts for the wealthy. Tax cuts that the middle class got, the minimal tax cuts the middle class got, that made them feel like they actually had accomplished something, that Republicans were actually doing something good here, and this like overnight legislation that was like this fucking thick that not a single goddamn person was physically capable of reading, that had provisions in it where the tax cuts for under $250,000 a year, for individuals making under $250,000 a year, would increase by the time Trump was out of office. That's happening already. So if you're in the middle class, if you make less than $250,000 a year, you're already no longer seeing those tax cuts. Those tax cuts are going to slowly go back up for you, okay, and go back to the previous levels. Whereas the tax cuts that were permanent was the corporate tax rate, lowering the corporate tax rate. The tax cuts that were permanent were the top marginal tax cuts. Does that not strike you as surprising? Do you not recognize that, like, That's kind of weird that, you are never getting those tax cuts. Like, you're never actually going to see permanent tax cuts in the middle class, and that only the top 1% of wealth are actually getting permanent tax cuts. Isn't that weird? Yeah, it sunsets in 2024. Sorry. It slowly trickles upward back to prior levels. Okay? And I mentioned this a million fucking times. Yeah, middle class tax cuts are set to expire. Of course. Yes. Okay. Anyway, and now Joe Manchin, who's playing the role of the spoiler that represents the interests of many different Democrats within the Democratic Party. Ask Ezra Klein why he asked surprised about the Democrats when you're on the podcast again with him. I've never been on an Ezra Klein podcast. I don't know why you said that. I mean, I would go on it, but
Developments this morning in the negotiations over President Biden's sweeping social spending package. This package could lead to major changes for seniors, new parents, kids, students.
Wait, do you think Ezra Klein is Ethan Klein, bro? Because that's pretty funny if that's what you think. Ethan Klein is an entirely different person. He is the co-host of my other podcast, Leftovers, and a YouTube content creator, and not like a super political person. Ezra Klein is a Vox. He was like the editor of Vox.com, who then became a New York Times op-ed writer. Two different people.
A source tells CNN that Senator Joe Manchin has informed Democratic leaders that he will accept a spending bill of up to $1.7 trillion. And Democratic leaders want to get votes on this started by midweek. This news comes after Biden hosted Manchin and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer at his home in Delaware yesterday. That's the first time he's done anything like that with members of Congress. Joining us now, CNN political commentators Jess McIntosh and Errol Lewis. Errol, I was just looking at Politico. They call this the 9 biggest days of Biden's presidency at this point.
Not an exaggeration in this case. This is the whole agenda. This is the whole ball of wax. Among other things, it will enable him perhaps to go to the G20 and to the climate summit with a win in hand. But the bigger picture is whether or not the Democrats have made good on their promises. This is going to be the question in the midterm elections. This is going to be the question in the re-elect for.
They're keeping in the universal pre-K, the child tax credit, but only a 1-year extension. No permanent child tax credits. Just a 1-year extension on an incredibly popular provision. Okay? Just remember that. The child tax credit has a 70% approval rating. Okay? 40% of Republicans like the child tax credit. Like more than 40% of Republicans, actually. So these aren't the Republicans that are setting Joe Biden to fail. Republicans are never going to, when they're not in power, deal with the Democrats, okay? Let's be fucking real. That's not happening. Republicans are always going to run an obstructionist attitude. They're always going to run an obstructionist agenda. And then when certain provisions pass that are actually ultimately helpful for their constituencies, they'll turn around and be like, I did that for you. Wasn't that great when I did that for you? While simultaneously being like, the Democrats are trying to kill you. Okay? Democrats, on the other hand, are always open to concessions. They're always open to conceding. They're always open to working with the Republicans. Always. They love that shit. Okay? They're fucking giant fans of that. I wonder why. This is a couple Democrats cucking the entirety, like 1 or 2 Democrats successfully destroying this infrastructure bill. Okay? Successfully destroying this infrastructure bill that had pretty solid provisions like tuition-free community college, which is now cut out, and climate change, carbon reduction, Medicare expansion, which is being deliberated on, like Medicare expansion. The initial number of this bill was supposed to be $6 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. Okay, they immediately came out of the gates with a $3.5 trillion concession, and now it's been whittled down to $1.9 trillion. Here is Joe Manchin saying Bernie Sanders' Medicare expansion on dental, hearing, vision is non-negotiable and must be included in the final bill. Manchin is reiterating that he's still opposed. The position he's made clear. Right now, it's fiscally irresponsible, I don't think. Like,
what are the chances of a deal this week? As far as conceptually,
I mean, it's fiscally irresponsible. I can pay for my dental and vision. I mean, after all, I'm making like $1 million a year from my coal mining operation. despite the fact that I'm, leading the energy, leading all energy initiatives in the Senate. It's not a big deal. Like, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I basically have a vested interest in making sure that my son's company is doing all right. But hey, that's precisely why I can pay for it. Hey, if you want to be able to pay for your dental, if you want to be able to pay for your vision when you're my age, all you need to do is become a senator. Keep running over and over again. Okay, you understand me? That's how you do it, Appalachians. That's how you do it, West Virginians. Just like you avoid the ads at the top of the hour when there's a 60-second ad break by subscribing. That's right. There are ways to do this, folks. At the top of the hour, there's always a 60-second ad break. And there's a way to avoid those ads if you subscribe. You can do that for $5, or you can do that for free with a Twitch Prime. That's right. Twitch Prime is free as long as you have an Amazon Prime account. Here's the 1-minute ad break now. First of the day.
We should. I really believe it'll, and just have a lot of good.
Why does Joe Manchin play such a crucial role with the Democrats? I'm a dummy. It begins with the American two-party system. When you have a two-party system that have like perfectly polarized interests when it comes to like non-immaterial issues that are basically culture war issues that everyone is geared up to vote on behalf of, then you have a lot of liberties. Like you can just basically run an obstructionist agenda as the party, the minority party, and the other party has to fucking figure out how to make sure that their own internal caucuses are all aligned on an agenda. Okay? Republicans can do this. They can literally just straight up be like, no. They can be like, we're not going to work with you. And the Republican constituencies will never fucking punish them for it. Why? Because ultimately, those godless Democrats are giving them the mark of the beast vaccine, taking their guns away, making their children homosexuals. You know what I mean? Like just psychotic bullshit that they believe in. So they're always going to keep voting Republican no matter what. So knowing that, it's in the best interest of the minority party that is not in a position of power to run an obstructionist agenda. That's precisely what the Republicans do. So when that happens and you have a 50-50 split in the Senate, it all comes down to literally one fucking Democrat stepping out of line and being like, fuck poor people. I don't give a shit. I hope they fucking die. They deserve to fucking die. They deserve to eat shit and fucking die. And that's precisely what Joe Manchin is able to do that. The best way to unfuck your PC is to restore it to factory settings. Oh no. Oh no, dude. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay, well, I'm gonna do that later then. I'm just gonna fucking stream normally and then I'm gonna do that later. Okay, that's what the person who made my PC said. So it's a little different. Okay.
Good faith.
So do you think there'll be a framework agreement?
I think the framework should be. Really should be.
Are you open to expanding Medicare at this point?
My big concern right now is the 2026 deadline that we have insolvency. And if no one's concerned about that, and I've got people that's a lifeline. Medicare and Social Security is a lifeline to people back in West Virginia, and most people around the country. And you've got to stabilize that first before you look at basically expansion. So if we're not being fiscally responsible, that's really concerning. Let me make one statement to you all. The best way to know who I am, and I've always been politically in my political life, I've always said that I believe that government should be your best partner, but it shouldn't be your provider.
1.75.
Democrat, by the way. It's so weird. It's like Ronald Reagan reincarnate, dude. Literally just a Reaganite Republican. You know what I mean? Worst thing you can hear is I'm from the government. I'm here to help. You know, that's the worst thing you can do. If you're living in my district, if you're living in my state of West Virginia, okay, and you have a hard time fixing your fucking teeth up, okay, because you're dirt poor and you're on fucking Medicare, okay, well, get fucked. All right, get fucking fucked. That's me. I'm Joe Manchin. I'm a fucking Democrat. I'm a moderate Democrat, which means get fucking murdered, poor people. That's what the fuck that means, okay? God damn it, dude. Aren't today's Dems basically Republicans 30, 40 years ago? It's like, dude. He doesn't give a shit. Like, this is his role. Same with fucking Cinema. He's more agreeable than Cinema. I don't even know what the fuck Cinema's doing. Okay. Yeah, I did watch Curb last night. I don't want to talk about that right now.
Too much for top lines. 1.75 too much.
I'm still 1.5, guys.
Now, the Medicare expansion is a critical component here because Bernie Sanders on the left has said that it is a red line for him. And he's
Bro, if the Progressive Caucus says, fuck this, okay? If the Progressive Caucus is like, fuck this, you know, or if they're yeeting like Medicare expansion, which is so helpful to the Democratic Party, like, it's so fucking helpful, dude. What an incredible way to like ensure midterm victory, even from like a wonk point of view. Okay, boom, put on the wonk hat for a second. Okay, hi, I'm Ezra Klein and I'm a wonk. Okay, I love the Democratic Party. I think the Democratic Party is doing great. I think that they truly care about the values that they espouse. I think that they want to actually win elections and not just bank on the not Republican Party. Okay, boom, I'm a wonk now. Are you ready? I'm a liberal wonk. These provisions, this legislative agenda is incredibly helpful. It is profoundly popular, and it literally helps the core constituencies. If you get old people, if you add Medicare expansion, old people vote. If you add Medicare expansion into the package, and old people can get their fucking teeth fixed, can go to the dentist under Medicare, can get their vision shit sorted out, they will want to vote for you in the midterms. They will come out and vote no matter what. Medicare is them's best issue for midterms due to how old the electorate is. Manchin is a corrupt idiot on this. Yeah. See, even our DNC operatives are in agreement with me. Okay, probably because I put the wonk hat on. So, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema standing in opposition to key provisions like this that are incredibly helpful for the Democratic Party are doing nothing but just playing the spoiler. They are anti-Democrats. They are worse than Republicans in that with that respect. Because you expect the Republicans to actually tank a bill. You expect them to not vote on this bill. They don't care. No one cares about like the actual betterment of the living conditions of their constituents. Let's be fucking real. Not a single fucking politician ultimately cares. Okay, there are like a couple. There's like 4 or 5 max. So even from a Democrats' chances of like winning the midterms, if they care about like winning elections, it is completely psychotic to even have Manchin go on camera and be like, yeah, that's right, Medicare expansion, not a good issue. The worst part about this, of course, is that the longer this legislative process takes, the more people sour on it. The more people can like talk about it back and forth. Everybody hates gridlock. Everybody hates fucking incompetence in the Senate and in Congress in general. So this is just reinforcing the idea that the party in power is incompetent, failing to do what is right, failing to do what is right by the people, and just failing to legislate in general, the one thing that they're supposed to fucking do. So this happened exactly with Obamacare as well, in the nearly identical capacity. Okay, I mean, obviously there was some like unfortunate circumstances, a death in the party, that sort of thing really changes the outcome dramatically. It changes the calculation dramatically. But even when Democrats are using their last resort budget reconciliation bill, which is supposed to give you like a majority vote, he's saying he's protecting Medicare by keeping the government solvent. It's bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. Also, if he wanted to keep the government solvent, he wouldn't be trying to fucking tank corporate tax rates, a tax hike for corporations. He wouldn't be trying to tank the fucking pharma negotiation for Medicare. That's bullshit. That's complete fucking bullshit. And if insolvency was truly a concern for people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, they wouldn't also be simultaneously advocating against like a massive provision that's going to cut off, it's going to shave like $1 trillion fucking dollars, which is allowing Medicare to negotiate pharmaceutical prices. This is one of the only countries on the fucking planet that does not do that, okay? Where it was literally illegal until recently. VA is the only like pharmaceutical purchasing entity in the United States of America that now has pharmaceutical bargaining powers. That never happened. There's a reason why we pay 10x the fucking price for insulin in comparison to our northern borders, northern neighbors in Canada. It's insane. It is so monstrous. It's so disastrous. It's so fucking inhumane and cruel. And it blows my goddamn mind that, like, this is just how it is. If he wanted to keep the government solvent, he would audit and cut the Pentagon budget, which dwarfs the cost of this package on a year-to-year basis. Yeah. The Pentagon package on the most conservative estimation for the next 10 years is $7 trillion. Straight up. 7 fucking trillion. Okay? We can't even get half of that. We're now negotiating at 1.9 trillion for the next 10 years. And these are provisions that are incredibly popular. These are provisions that actually help the American people.
Should include dental, vision, and hearing. And Joe Manchin right there makes clear that he is not supportive of going that route. So how does that ultimately get resolved? So here's some key questions here. Even though there's optimism, there's a deal, still some key issues to resolve.
All indications are they want to wrap it up before the president's...
When people say they want to fucking, they're worried about inflation, but don't talk about, like, I don't know, cooling the economy a little bit by, like, raising taxes and whatnot. Or when people talk about fucking insolvency and don't talk about raising tax on the wealthy or corporations, don't talk about the pay-for measures or stand against the pay-for measures like Medicare pharmaceutical price negotiations, recognize that it's not about inflation, recognize it's not about the budget. It's completely about just standing in opposition and blowing up the bill, okay? He's strapping on like a comical TNT vest and just blowing it up, okay? That's all he's doing. That's his fucking job here.
Key trip on Thursday, Caitlin.
Yeah, I mean, here, I've shown this before. Yeah, I've shown this image before. There it is. 7.5 trillion over the next 10 years, whereas this is what the budget looks like. What a math problem. What a fucking math problem for the Democrats this is. Next 10 years. Not just Sinema. Senator Bob Menendez took $1 million from pharma, shoots down bill to lower drug costs. Yeah, that, by the way, this is what I was talking about when I said Democrats are gigantic fucking pieces of shit. Why are Democrats gigantic pieces of shit? Bob Menendez is literally a criminal, okay? Straight the fuck up. Bob Menendez is a criminal. Why is Bob Menendez still a senator? I don't know. Maybe because the Democrats fucking backed him. Conspiracy theory, by the way. Exactly. This is a conspiracy theory, you know? When I tell you that there are more than just Sinema and plenty of other Democrats that are secretly and quietly against a lot of these, like, pay for measures or against some of the provisions in here, I mean it. They're just relying on Kyrsten Sinema to be the magnet, the lightning rod. Why? Because Kyrsten Sinema probably enjoys this, okay? There is no other reason other than this goblin fucking operating this way, other than the fact that she very likely enjoys it, okay? She's getting off to it. She is literally fucking executing her kink by fucking over the poors and fucking over the working class. And fucking over the Democratic Party as well, if that's all you care about. If all you care about with respect to politics is like team sports and winners and losers, she's fucking your team, okay? Just to get fucking, just to pleasure herself. Why can't people counter lobby? 1 million for a billionaire isn't much. Dude, that's such a silly, childish way of thinking about it. This entire system is designed beyond the lobbying. The lobbying is simply just an exercise that is tacked on to the capitalist corporate-backed structure of the bourgeois capitalist Western democracies, okay? It's just one other way to enforce their interests, okay? To reinforce their interests. But this entire fucking system is designed in a way where, like, lobbying or lack thereof is not going to magically change the outcomes, okay? So to think that, like, 1 billionaire can just, like, lobby against their own material interests is a laughable thing. Like, oh, dude, just, like, counter lobby. You know, just lobby socialism into existence. It's not going to happen. That's why I always laugh when people are like, I don't understand. Why don't you start a super PAC, dude? Lobbying is the most, like, public fuck you of corruption to that most Americans recognize and can see as a bad thing. But, like, someone who actually lobbies against the current order of business, they're not going to be successful, because for every, like, 1 billionaire socialist, let's say there's a billionaire socialist in this magical universe, okay? I don't know how or why, but let's say there's a billionaire socialist. For every 1 billionaire socialist, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of millionaires and other billionaires that will fucking lobby against that person, or will continue to want the system to run as it is, where the best possible outcomes are happening for them. Okay? Would getting rid of lobbying not have an effect on our current system? It would be marginal, and it would be great. But it's not the end all be all. I need people to understand this. That's why, like, if lobbying ultimately was the only reason why these people are doing this, the only reason why they're operating this way, then you could lobby against them. You could fucking counter lobby. But that's not a real thing. One, you could only do that by grassroots organizing, because there is no, like, there is no centralized wealth that would advocate for their best interest, their material interest. But yeah, lobbying is yet another manifestation of the corrupt system. It's not like it's a horrible excess, okay? It's one that you can recognize as, like, indecent and fucked up, but ultimately it's not the end all be all. New investigation from DR Bogus Law, Daniel Bogus Law. As Senator Joe Manchin's star rose in West Virginia, the FBI and IRS probed his closest allies. Among other revelations, Manchin has governed and directed his chief of staff to help push up electricity rates to bail out the company buying coal from him. Nice, dude. I mean, of course. What do you expect? That's just the cost of doing business, baby. That's how you do it. Anyway, here's Governor Gavin Newsom, my sexy ass governor, talking about the Congress spending negotiations.
This political death march of who's up, who's down, Manchin this, cinema. I can't take it anymore. No one can take it anymore. And just enough. Like, stop. Just get something done. And it looks like they're finally going to get something done. And watch. Miraculously, numbers will start going up. They actually delivered. Now you can go out and say what you did. No one even remembers what was in the original $1 trillion package and all the good infrastructure investment. Now they get.
That's so stupid. It's like you're literally relying on the public getting a shittier deal overall, a watered down bill overall. I mean, ultimately he is correct in the sense that, like, yeah, people will forget, people will not punish you, people will not give a shit. They just want legislation to be done, rather than, like, what kind of legislation is being done. Obviously, we here will care, and we here will talk about it regularly, about how this is a fucking watered down piece of shit bill that is basically a skeleton of what it once was, even though the ultimate bill, the original bill, was also launched off of a concession, right? But most of the American public will not give a shit. But the other part about it is that, like, you won't realize the immediate impacts until later anyway. Anyway, so he's right technically, but also at the same time, this still sucks. Like, this is the wonk understanding, for the record. This is like the way that wonks operate. It's like, just get it done. It doesn't matter. Just get it done. Get anything done. Get anything done. People will forget ultimately. If you had any sort of morality or any sort of like moral reasons for being a legislator or being a politician in general, then you would be fucking disgusted by the current process. Okay? So from a wonk point of view, he's correct. If your only interest is like catching a fucking dub, if you're only looking at this, if you're only looking at politics from a team sports perspective and it's like Democrats winning, Republicans losing, then yes, Democrats getting anything done right now as quickly as fucking possible is the best thing that they can do. Ultimately, though, a watered down bill is going to hurt or is not going to help the American citizens that desperately need help.
Get to talk about that again, not just this $3.5 trillion reconciliation that's over 10 years. People don't know it's 10 years, don't even know what a trillion is, don't know what reconciliation is. They just know no one's getting any damn thing done. This
Wonk askers or Discord rats 100%. Nuke 'em. Because of you? No, Gavin Newsom has no part of this process. He's a fucking governor.
For Joe Biden. This is the whole
All
thing.
right, I gotta
There are
pee.
some legislators, John, who have spent their entire lives waiting for this moment. And to a certain extent, Joe Biden is one of those people. There's a lot resting on this. If they get this done, imagine dental and vision for seniors forever, or at least for a few years, and then it becomes forever. Imagine, help for kids going to community college, or at the other end of the scale, pre-kindergarten learning for people, the child tax credit. This is big, big, big stuff. It's our own version of the New Deal. And so, yeah, we could know in 9 days whether or not we get a New Deal or more partisan fighting.
It is a huge social safety net, right? Even initially it was $6 trillion, now it's less, but it's still gigantic. There's still pieces that need to be in place here, though, Jess. And I wonder, Joe Manchin's a key one. What about Kyrsten Sinema? What about progressives like AOC?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, I want to see how much leverage does the Progressive Caucus still maintain. They were significantly stronger than we have ever seen them before in the negotiations that led us to this place. I think we're looking at, do we address as many crises as we can for a shorter period of time, or do we whole cloth jettison jobs or education or childcare or care economy programs that we need? I think this is a wildly popular agenda. The pieces that we are talking about are wildly popular, even in a bipartisan manner across the country. Nobody should be afraid to run on this agenda. So I'm hopeful. I'm going to look for the attitude, that kind of attitude, and hope that we do more in a moment when we need to be doing more.
Are there reasons other than money and politics that make Northern European outcomes much more humane than American ones? What do you mean humane? As in, like, social democracies in Northern Europe are more successful at like implementing certain policies, like social democratic spending, like a welfare state, like a robust welfare state, over the dystopian late stage capitalist shithole that America is for the working class. Yeah, it's called labor power, labor militancy, having a lot of organizational tools to be able to combat some of capital's influence, even in those social democracies, there is a constant back and forth. There's a constant fucking struggle. Like, those places have austerity too. You know what I mean? Those places get hit with austerity measures as well. Reactionary politicians are able to utilize, they're able to basically utilize the anti-immigrant sentiment and things like that, or any sort of volatility, and capture the attention of the working class or the masses in an effort to basically fucking turn around and advocate for the similar things that Republicans and reactionaries here advocate for: corporate power, more corporate power, less social spending, less helpful provisions for their own individual working class citizens.
How much of this is about the framing, though? It's interesting. You talk about what you're worried will not be in it. And Errol, I've been reading quotes from members of Congress who say, we've got to start talking about what people will be getting that they haven't been. Where there's zero now, there will be $1.7 trillion worth.
Well, that's right. We've reported it for months now as 3.5 trillion. Will it get done? And to a certain extent, there are people.
It's literally written into the Swedish Constitution to provide quality and accessible education, so that helps. No, that doesn't mean shit, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? There are plenty of things written into the American Constitution that, like, you will never be able to enforce. If there's no enforcement mechanism, okay, if there's no enforcement mechanism in the form of, like, labor power and in the form of, like, actual political parties that recognize their constituencies and, like, can actually, in a multi-party system, be able to advocate for the needs of their constituencies, it literally does not fucking matter. The Constitution is just a piece of paper you wipe your fucking ass on, okay? It just doesn't mean shit, okay? None of these constitutions are like legit. It's just the key difference between European countries, European social democracies, and the United States is that the United States was successfully able to implement neoliberal measures, whereas some of the only countries in Europe were able to also implement some of those neoliberal measures was like the UK, for example, with Thatcher. And you see that constant struggle, even though there are untouchable parts of the welfare state that are broadly popular and people love it, even though there are still austerity problems with some of those popular parts of the healthcare structure.
Waking up this morning and will probably be disappointed to hear that it's only 1.7 trillion. We've gotten, I think, a little spoiled in this pandemic era about a trillion here and a trillion there. The reality is that if you're moving toward cutting child poverty in half, that is a monumental achievement that people have dreamt of for generations. And to go further down that road.
Like, that's so crazy. That's basically what we're doing. Like, we are literally, like, we have an opportunity to cut child poverty, which we did. Okay. And Republicans and some Democrats are like, yeah, no, that's not great, actually. It's just not good. It's just not good to do so.
Whether it's childcare or other kind of enhancements, that's a big deal. Even if it's means tested. Okay, fine. Let's keep moving forward. Big things can happen. And that underlying proposition, if it's not framed properly, could turn a victory into a defeat in the eyes of voters.
Haven't we done enough, Law? Wait, are you serious? You can't be serious, right? You don't actually think we've done enough, right?
And that in itself would be tragic.
I want to agree, really.
This is also manufacturing consent, by the way. Like, having a guy on who is already, like, wealthier and has probably, if I Googled this dude's background, like 90% of the fucking people that you see in mainstream media have had, like, corporate PR positions for half of the fucking companies whose interests they're advocating for. Okay? They come on, and even on the supposed, like, liberal side, the side that's supposed to be on the side of the working class, they fucking still turn around. I mean, what's this dude's name? We'll look him up. But even the side that's supposed to be fighting for the working class interest, there's a guy who's functionally telling you, like, you should settle for less. Anyway, there's a guy named Errol Lewis. New York City journalist, television host, early life, politics. He ran for the Democratic primary. Lois lost to Pinkett with 27.82, but then ran against Pinkett general election on the Green Party line, Davis on the Conservative Party and Liberal Party lines. He was on the New York Sun, Daily News, Our Time Press. Lewis joined. He's the director of urban reporting at City University, New York's Graduate School of Journalism. BA in government from Harvard, MA, Master's in political science from Yale, and a JD from the Brooklyn Law School. It doesn't show up what they're like. I wish they fucking showed up. I wish they like actually showed up with their prior experiences. He's actually not bad, but he's not a leftist. I know, but even the not bad guy, the point is, even the not bad guy is kind of telling you like you should be happy with what you're getting. Okay? That's the issue. What does austerity mean? I hear you reference it a lot. Is there a particular reason why Discord Andes are doing this today, where they like want me to break down every individual thing? Like, austerity means belt tightening, okay? Cutting social safety programs or social safety nets. That's what it is, okay? Please, if it's like some fucking dumbass bingo shit, I'm gonna headbutt you guys digitally, okay? He works at NY News. Yeah, I mean, he's done like contribution and columnist shit. I wonder what his wife does. Anyway. Do you think creating fake news about vaccines is something related to the freedom of speech? What? Anyway, this is an entire professional class dedicated to convincing people to settle for very little and even expect even less in the future. Yeah.
Strongly with everything that you just said and put into perspective that this is ultimately going to be an outcome story, not a process story. So these days are literally the worst days of having to pass historic legislation. 5-10 years from now, we're talking about future generations and families that have been helped. We are not talking about Joe Manchin and Kirsten.
Do you want progressives to cave or kill this bill? It doesn't matter. Progressives cave on this bill and people are like, well, this fucking sucks. It literally, it doesn't matter at this point. If progressives cave on this bill, you destroy progressive momentum. Okay? Democrats run that fucking PR machine. Okay? They crank it and go, look, like we did something for you. Come on. Be happy with the fucking crumbs. And then, and once again, they're cucked. If they kill the bill, okay, if the Progressive Caucus kills the bill, then they're public enemy number one. And the machine runs again, but this time, despite the fact that like the bill was fucking destroyed, and it was literally Joe Biden's own agenda, and that Joe Biden was aligning functionally with the Progressive Caucus, even though all of that was happening, all of a sudden, progressives are the main villains. It wasn't Kirsten Sinema at all, by the way. New Deal Democrats, by the way. Joe Biden is the new FDR, by the way. What happened to all of that shit? Nothing.
Cinema.
Well, let's talk about the coming weeks, because there are a couple of key races, including Virginia, where Terry McAuliffe has basically said, guys, pass this, throw me a line. Is it going to be enough?
I mean, I think that the Virginia governor's race is playing out along a lot of very strange, Obama called it a phony culture war that Glenn Youngkin is running. It's playing out where Glenn Youngkin seems to think that this school board rage that's happening is the biggest issue for Virginia voters, and he's forgetting how much of that
it is. It is. It literally is. I'm sick and tired of acting like it isn't. Do you want to know why it is? Because in this country, we do everything we possibly can to ensure that the working poor never fucking go out and vote. Okay? They vote in like much smaller numbers than the wealthy. Okay? Older people vote. Wealthy people vote. Poor people, for the most part, don't vote. Why? Because they're working and it's not a fucking national holiday. Why? Because they feel like no one really gives a fuck about their point of view. So what ends up happening in that situation is these sorts of wedge issues, culture war issues, are the only thing that differentiates the Democrats from the Republicans. So that's precisely why Republicans hyper-focus on CRT or public education, teaching children that like racism is bad, or vaccine mandates and whatnot, or fucking your grandmother's Twitter account is being silenced because she literally fucking types like a goddamn bot. All that stuff is the issues that they care about. Because why the fuck would they care about material issues when no one is talking about the material issues, no one is talking about economic policies, no one is talking about the fucking and more than like, even if they are talking about it, more so than that, no one is actually pushing for that. Okay, Democrats are playing a game where they go, oh yeah, we really care about the working poor, and then they don't do fucking shit. They don't actually advocate for it. If the $15 minimum wage in the prior budget reconciliation package was forced through, okay, where we fucking, I don't know, fired the Senate parliamentarian and continued on with that agenda and like whipped Joe Manchin and whipped Kirsten Sinema and whipped Maggie Hassan and all these other fucking senators that were functionally against it, that would have been tangible evidence that the Democrats are doing something for the working class. We didn't do that. Okay? They didn't fucking do that. They didn't do that because they don't give a shit. Okay? Ultimately, they don't give a shit. That would have been a material difference in the lives of so many people. They would finally recognize, like, wait a minute, you know, they fuck up a lot. But ultimately, despite the fact that they fuck up a lot, there is still some things that they're doing for me. Because at the end of the day, all you care about is if you're taking time off your day, if you're taking time off work to be able to go out and vote, it's the least important, most important thing you can do, right? If you're doing that, then you expect results, and you're not going to fucking do that if there are no results. If you're not seeing any returns on that opportunity cost of going out and voting, okay? And don't fucking tell me how easy it is to vote. I know it's really easy for people like us. It's not necessarily that easy for people who might not have an ID. It's not really that easy for people who are like confused by the fucking process, okay? And clearly, evidently, voting is not actually changing the outcome for a lot of these people. It's literally not. If you're a fucking poor person, okay, and you would like to, at the very least, have like living wages in your minimum wage job, and you see the Democrats going, oh man, like, oh, oopsie, we can't do it because a Senate parliamentarian, an unelected person, decided that like we can't put it in the budget reconciliation, then why the fuck would you ever vote again? Why would you ever vote again? You're like, oh, okay, well, I did that, but like it didn't do anything for me. So why am I going to do that again? Why? Because the other side is evil. The other side is terrible. The other side is going to cut your civil liberties. And they will. They literally will try to do that, by the way. Republicans will do that. So there is a reality there too. But like people are fatigued from constantly defensive voting year over year over year, and then not realizing any of the fucking benefits of voting for one party over the other. And that's precisely how you get to a point where Republicans are able to run on, you know, wearing a fucking shooting vest, holding up a bass that they caught, that someone else caught, obviously, driving a fucking King Rancher, and then shooting up bottles that say CRT on it, and then having like every Republican be like, yee, brother, that's right, I'm gonna vote for that. Because that is a material difference in their eyes, in the eyes of the Republican constituencies. That's a big difference between those guys that I'm voting for, that the television man is telling me is good to vote for, versus the other guys that are the libtard cucks who want to like make your child gay and, you know, want to fucking abort your baby without your consent or some shit.
That is just manufactured by his own party. Terry McAuliffe is trying really hard to keep it on bread and butter issues. Most parents are worried about school safety when it comes to guns and COVID, not so much about critical race theory. I believe that if we get something done in the next 9 days, that's just going to put a lot more energy into the kind of message that Terry McAuliffe is trying to bring to voters now. That's what they care about. It's not Dr. Seuss or Superman or whatever cartoon is frightening Republicans this week.
We'll find out, won't we? We'll find out in Virginia. It's a very close race, but I don't think I've seen...
Like, it shouldn't be a close race. Like, it should not. If Democrats actually did something for the people, if Democrats actually fucking went out on a limb every now and then and like did something good for the people without like constantly fucking fighting one another, fighting internally within the Democratic Party and like holding legislation and tanking their own legislative agenda without, like, very publicly and in the most embarrassing way possible, like, failing to overcome infighting and pushing for actual tangible changes that materially improve the working class, it would not be a close race. Yeah, sure, there would still be some fucking delusional psychos who are like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about, there would be the lumpen pros, there would be the fucking small business tyrants and whatnot that still end up voting for the Republican Party. But there would be a fuckload more people who are like, yeah, this is good, actually. I want this. I want more of this.
Seen something quite like this, Errol, where both sides are trying to nationalize it. Glenn Youngkin, who's the Republican, is trying to nationalize it around these issues that Jess was talking about, school boards and whatnot. Terry McAuliffe is trying to nationalize it around vaccines and, frankly, Donald Trump.
Well, that's right. Terry McAuliffe, was not some legislator in Virginia who rose to national prominence. Just the opposite, in fact. He started out as a member of the Clinton team, who then became a local official. This is somebody who has to nationalize it. He's calling in every favor that he can. The polls are going in the wrong direction. He's having a very tough time. And if he's going to nationalize it, he's going to need some national help. Hence, his begging.
I just don't care. Like, I don't care if Biden's entire fucking popularity rating tanks. I don't give a shit. Fuck it. If he's not going to be able to, like, actually implement some minor fucking changes that will materially improve the conditions of the working class, I don't care if he fucking is no longer popular, okay? If he has a boo-boo, who gives a shit?
To the Congress and to, I don't know which national officials haven't been through there, right? But we've got Obama and Kamala Harris, and Biden himself is going to come in and try and wrap it up for him, even as the polls are going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, Kamala Harris is really going to wrap it up, dude. What the fuck? If there's one person who is, like, categorically less liked than Joe Biden throughout this fucking process, it's literally Kamala Harris. The fuck she's gonna? What the fuck is she gonna do, dude? Fuck is she gonna do?
Unfortunately for him, one thing that Republicans do really, really well is taking cultural fueled rage and turning it into a turnout strategy. And that seems to be working right now, at least, if the polls can be believed, in Virginia. That's what McAuliffe is fighting against.
And does this come in time, the passage of this bill, assuming it happens, to counteract that? And are those forces strong enough? Because I wonder, Errol, you look at, for instance, Obamacare, passed initially, unpopular, and then over time, very popular. Very hard for Republicans to weaponize.
Sure.
Oh, wow. That's so crazy. It's almost like social spending is actually broadly popular, and Republicans and Democrats recognize that, because the only people that are functionally hurt by these sorts of spending programs is, like, corporations that have to fucking foot the bill to a certain degree, and the wealthy that have to fit the bill to a certain degree. And that is precisely the reason why they push back against it as best as possible, because they recognize that once actually implemented, people are like, well, fuck yeah, I don't want this to go away. Same with the Social Security, which Obama literally was going to cut. Okay? Obama, many people do not remember this, but, like, part of the reason why people were very upset at Bernie Sanders was because Bernie Sanders was like, fuck Obama. What the fuck is this bullshit? Like, you can't cut Social Security. And the only reason why Social Security wasn't cut under Obama when he was, like, trying to negotiate with the Republicans was because Republicans were like, nah, it's more beneficial for us to keep our obstructionist attitude rather than, keep our obstructionist attitude rather than, like, allow you to fucking... Hold on. Sorry. Allow you to take away Social Security spending.
Sure.
Do you see any similarities between that and this?
Well, it's not going to do Terry McAuliffe any good, I'll tell you that, because just as you say, I mean, the bill itself will be somewhat popular, and then it becomes really popular after those checks start to flow, after people see the relief, after people understand what it means for their lives. But we've got Americans who are in a very rambunctious mood right now. You've got millions of people walking off the job with nothing on the other side of it. People are really, really fed up. And I think, a headline in the news isn't necessarily going to turn that around in the short term.
Joel Benenson, former pollster for Barack Obama's 2008 and 2012 campaigns, joins me now. And Joel, you've done a big poll, a pretty big poll on voter priorities. And one of the things you say for Democrats is, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. What do you mean here?
Well, I didn't invent that quote.
No, but here.
Obviously. I think that you have to treat every election as its own dynamic. We're dealing with a moment in time where, in fact, the thing that people were most gripped by in our poll is they don't think our economy is going to improve until the pandemic is completely solved. So that says there is a lot of anxiety around where we still are in terms of the pandemic and the economy. But what I really mean by that is that to win elections in the United States, we don't have a majority of liberals or a majority of conservatives. You've got a plurality of moderates. Like, you've got to appeal to the center to win. And it was one of the things that I think President Obama did very well throughout his presidency. I think. Yeah, no, totally, dude.
I love running that same line over and over again every single election and then being like, I don't know why this failed. This is fucking perfect. This is the best idea. Yeah, running center is the reason why increasing the minimum wage in the state of Florida to $15 an hour was more popular than both of the fucking candidates. You know what I mean? That's why. Centrist policies like that. And of course, that's why Hillary Clinton lost, because she wasn't centrist enough. Or that's why Donald Trump won, because he was super centrist and he wasn't fucking far right. No, every election is the same. You give your constituents stuff and make sure they make sure they know who gave it to them, then they vote for you. Yeah.
President Biden did it very well during his campaign. I think Democrats in Congress have to understand that the moderate wing of that party is central to their success going forward.
Specifically, what your poll found is the issues that Democratic voters think are most important are different than the issues that independent voters think most important.
To some extent. I mean, right now, everybody thinks that the economy won't get better until the pandemic is gone, right? So on the economic forefront, that's the case. But what I would also say is I often look at moderate voters.
Do you really think the best plan is not to appeal to the biggest spread of people? No, I believe the best plan is to appeal to the biggest spread of people. But the issue there is if we continue with this Democrat, independent, moderate, Republican attitude, then you don't appeal to the fucking biggest spread of people possible. The biggest spread of people in this country are working class people, okay? If you successfully propagandize and communicate to them that there are material interests at play, that like certain provisions are helpful for their helpful to make their existence more meaningful, helpful to fucking alleviate some of the stress from their lives, helpful like economic restitution, allowing them to have at least like living wages. That is the most successful way of winning elections. Okay. $15 minimum wage is extremely popular. Healthcare, expanding healthcare, Medicare is extremely popular. Lowering the fucking age limit of Medicare to 55 is 90%, dude. 90% of Americans believe in lowering the fucking Medicare eligibility. Okay? 90%. That's nuts. We don't do it though. Even like shit like gun control, right? Universal background checks and expanding like some regulation around like how guns are trafficked, sold, regulated. Even that has a 90% approval rating. We don't even do that. And the reason for why we can't do that is because, again, when right-wing media takes a hold of that, they are very successful at fucking blowing it up no matter what happens. Yeah, but what about the other 10%? You need to be centrist, man. Yeah, exactly. That's right. It's that's how you do it. That's how you fucking. That's how you win, dude. The moderate middle is a myth. The American, if there's one thing I know about American voters, okay, after all of my years of covering politics, after going around the country from time to time as well, whether it be like door knocking or doing a bunch of other shit. What I've come to find out about the American working class or American voters in general is that trying to pin them to an ideological position is fucking impossible. There's empirical evidence to also prove or also back up my point here. 80% of Americans vote on party lines, 20% only vote on ideology. And not only that, but also a lot of Americans have a mishmash of eclectic ideas that oftentimes are inherently contradictory to one another. Okay? That's why you see anti-vaxxers who are like, I fucking hate Big Pharma. I love Donald Trump. It's like, what? How do you hate Big Pharma? Then you vote for the fucking guy who is like literally helping big corporations. Like, I hate big corporate power. But the only way they recognize big corporate power is when Facebook fucking bans like their grandmother or some shit. Or when Pfizer is like, you should take this fucking vaccine. It's not even Pfizer, but like, you know what I mean? When the government says you should take this vaccine, it'll help you. That's the only way that they recognize that they hate like government interference or whatever the fuck. Or they hate like corporate power. Okay? Lots of American people take pride in saying, I'm not a Republican or Dem, even if their views are 100% one or the other. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's another great, have you read Ezra Klein on polarization? Yes, Ezra Klein and I are in agreement on polarization. We agree. The only difference is I say that polarization benefits the Democratic Party in operating as a controlled opposition party that simply is there to fucking bottleneck leftist momentum in this country and nothing else. And Ezra is the kind of guy who goes, I just don't understand why Democrats don't want to win. It's so crazy. I mean, this really is bad for the Democrats not to push for this. Yep, independent for life. Y'all are cringe. Says ego will consume you. You are not independent. Like, you're not. You're literally not. You are just as much as a bugman cuck as every other fucking dumbass you hate, okay? If not even bigger. There's nothing more bugmen than being like, I'm an independent. I'm an independent. No, the fuck you're not. Shut up, dumbass. You're not. Oh my God, dude. Yeah, I'm such an independent. That's why I vote Republican every election. Or Democrats, which are like the lighter version of the fucking Republicans. You have no fucking individual thought. You literally have never crafted a single individual thought. You've never looked into policy. You've never looked into the outcomes of policy. And you're simply fucking rehashing talking points from your favorite fucking commentator, whether it be me or someone else. That's all you fucking do. Bernie was independent until he made a progressive part of the government. What the fuck are you talking about? Says Chad Debate Lord. Chad. Bernie was independent. Yeah, totally, dude. Bernie's definitely independent. He has no, like, consistent ideological point of view that guides his legislative agenda. You're right. Yeah, Bernie's independent like I'm independent, dumbass. I mean, I could say that. I'd be like, oh, I'm independent. It would probably work with the fucking birds real well. The United States, as it pertains to the material interests of the working class, are a single party country, okay? They are almost as unified as the fucking Chinese Communist Party, okay? They're going to do whatever the fuck they are going to do when it comes to lowering taxes for fucking wealthy, deregulating key parts of the industry, and also expanding our already expansive and grossly inflated fucking military budget, and to continue foreign interference and to continue imperialism. That's as unified as you can fucking get. The rest of the conversation exclusively revolves around like, oh my God, oh, I don't know, like, oh, should we teach children that like slavery was bad? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Just like everyone is fucking unified in receiving the ad break at the top of the hour. However, having said that, you can also be unified with the rest of the subscribers by subscribing to no longer see that ad, okay? Because at the top of the hour, I run a 6-second ad break, 1 per hour. But you can no longer see that ad as long as you subscribe for $5 or for free if you have a Twitch Prime. That way you have an ad-free broadcasting experience. Yes, I know that was a good segue. You don't have to tell me. Your tomatoes only strengthen me, okay? Also, Andrew's going to be here at 2 p.m. Anyway, do you think it would be wise to encourage people to be independent so it can maybe, hopefully, probably not lead to the creation of a third party? No. It's not a real thing, okay? I mean, look, my theory for change in this country is very different than others, or maybe similar to others. I don't know. I personally believe that, like, the best way to change is by trying to organize around local issues, organize around, like, local positions, and slowly but surely fill the ranks up of unfortunately, the Democratic Party until there is more power within the Democratic Party structure that there's more power to the people that genuinely fucking care about the interests of the working class. Slowly but surely making it easier to fucking unionize, making it easier to organize, expanding on like labor power in this country until you have, once again, an infrastructure for labor action, whether it be general strikes or whether it be fucking any sort of, it goes all the way from like advocacy in the workplace, in your individual workplace, to make sure you get better benefits or more of a percentage of the profits that you generate from your bosses, all the way to straight up changing political outcomes by having an enforcement mechanism. That is the way I believe it. That is the way I believe that there is the only viable method of change. Sorry for baiting. I was kind of trolling you, but you answered the question. Thanks. Fascism attempts to organize the newly proletarianized masses without affecting the property structure which the masses strive to eliminate. Fascism sees its salvation in giving these masses not their right, but instead a chance to express themselves. Walter Benjamin. I repeat talking points to my friends and pretend like they're my own. That's fine. Oh, I didn't run the ad. I'm running it now. Sorry. Someone just reminded me. Thank you. What organizations do you recommend to donate support for political action? I don't know right now. Hold on. Let's continue with this. I don't know why I read chat so much when I'm like in the middle of like trying to fucking craft a narrative here. Okay. Critical race theory and the moral panic. 56 minutes, dude. I'm not watching that. Let's keep going.
It's the ideological center. And if you look on an array of issues and ratings of Democrats and Republicans in Congress, if I'm a Republican Congress looking at moderate voters right now, I would be really worried about what my ratings are, because there's a significant gap between where moderates are on their favorable rating of Democrats in Congress, which isn't great. You know, it's about +3, and Republicans are about -17. So the only thing that will help them is, you know, the gerrymandering and the reapportionment lines that they've drawn, but they're losing the center in the public vote.
Let me ask you, because one...
Yeah, great. Tapper to Pelosi, are you frustrated with Cinema and Mansion? Let's see what Pelosi had to say.
The question
Slay Queen Pelosi
right now is paid family leave. You said that you hope that that's going to be in there, 4 weeks of paid family leave. And the expansion of Medicare to include dental, vision, and hearing coverage. Is that going to be in the bill?
Well, that's part of the negotiation. Dental is very expensive. So hearing and visual and dental, but dental will take a little longer to implement. But that's part of the negotiation right now.
So you don't know what's going to be in the final bill.
Well,
it sounds like you're saying dental might not make it because it's so expensive.
It'll be on a path. It'll be on a path. But what they told us, and I don't quite understand why, but we've been told by people who know about these things that it'll take 5-6 years in order to implement the dental. So how do we, shall we say, fill in the blank there? Bernie has some suggestions about how to do that. That'll be part of the negotiation.
Bernie Sanders, the independent from Vermont.
Sanders.
Are you frustrated? I mean, you talk about how you're almost there, except for 10% of the bill, and you also talk about how the House is there. You guys are ready. You're going to pass it. And it's really these two Senate holdouts, Sinema and Manchin. Are you frustrated with them?
Well, I'm respectful of everybody's point of view. I do not want the I don't want the Trump tax cuts perpetuated. So I don't want anybody to think if we don't address those right now they're off the table. No, we will use them for something at some point, because you can't use the wealth tax and tax the billionaires, which is what we should be doing, and let corporate America off the hook. But corporate America will be paying because of the overseas tax, and some of the other provisions are very technical to go into right now.
Yeah.
We'll know more tomorrow to see what makes the cut.
What makes the cut?
And then it's worth it, the time to go into it.
There's also this issue of the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a different issue. That's separate.
It's a separate issue, but in terms of how you get it through the Congress to President Biden's desk, maybe separate, maybe not. Congress acted to raise the debt ceiling through December 3rd. After that, Republican leader, Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says, "You're on your own. We're not going to provide any votes for Democrats." A default, obviously, would be devastating for the American economy, for the world economy. Are you willing to attach raising the debt ceiling to the social safety net package, or if not, to use reconciliation, which means only 51 votes needed in the Senate anyway?
The party leader, Nancy Pelosi, is a key leader in the Democratic Party. She's not in that position because she is an astute speaker. She's in that position because she's an incredible fundraiser. Just remember that every single time you see her fucking speak through her veneers, okay? She's not a great speaker. People say she's a good whip, okay? And behind closed doors, she's like pretty fucking brutal. But the main reason why she is in this position is because she is a really good fundraiser, okay? Just remember that.
In order to get this done.
That's one path, but we're still hoping to have bipartisanship. It seems that the American people should understand that what we're talking about is largely the Trump debt.
Right.
Now, we participated in some of it with COVID and the rest, but we didn't participate in giving a tax scam, 83% of the benefits to the top 1% that added $2 trillion to the debt.
Yeah, American people love the debt, dude. They fucking care about that so much. That's why even the Republicans don't talk about that anymore. And the best way perhaps to communicate the desires to the American public is not by talking about all the goodies that they'll get if they end up voting for the Democrats, but the debt. That's what people care about. Motherfucker, we don't even care about climate change, okay? And even if it's happening right in front of our eyes, we don't care about climate change. Why the fuck would anybody care about debt, dude? It's made up. Republicans definitely talk about the debt. Yes, that used to be the main fucking... It was like tort reform and debt were the two key things that Republicans in the 90s used to talk about. Do you know what they started talking about afterwards, though? You know what they changed it to? Newt Gingrich and wedge issues that revolve around fucking gay people getting married or abortion or guns. These are significantly more important issues for the Republican constituencies. They recognize that as long as they have a propaganda outlet that will pump this shit out, immigration, nobody gives a fuck about the debt. If there's anyone that legitimately cares about the debt, at least in the way that they operate, it's the fucking Democratic Party for some laughable reason. God knows why. Anyway, keyword is talk. They only talk about debt, then spend insane amounts of money on wars and tax breaks. Exactly.
President Biden's part of this debt is about 3%.
Right.
And yet the Republicans, who when the former president was in office 3 times, we had to do something about the national debt. Now, look at what is in jeopardy. Even talking about it is not a good idea because...
You're delusional if you think debt is fake, shaking my head. No, I just don't think that I don't think it's that significant of a fucking problem in the way that Democrats and Republicans make it seem like it is when they want to talk about it. And if that was a significant part of the problem, there are areas that they could fucking cut, which they don't. So clearly they don't give a shit. Okay. But no, go on, dude. Tell me more. No, they are genuine and they do care. You're right.
I mean, even placing in doubt.
The debt is literally to ourselves, too.
Not a good idea because it can lower the credit rating of our country, as it did when the Republicans did not want to increase it when President Obama was president. Seems they're okay with it when there's a Republican president, but not a Democrat. 6 to 7 million jobs could be lost. $15 trillion in household wealth. Consequences that could last for decades.
Why not get rid of the debt ceiling?
Well, that's what we have a plan to do as well.
Yeah, like just put it through the fucking roof, dude. It is a mechanism that we have placed upon ourselves. It is a useless control mechanism that both Democrats, when they're the minority party, or Republicans, when they're the minority party, use to try to like bully the opposition, okay? To be like, yeah, well, you know, oh, you want to fucking give poor people money? Fuck you, okay? I'm going to make sure we're not voting to lift the debt ceiling, okay? But it's ultimately fucking made up.
There are a number of plans to do that, but would the Republicans agree to that before we again?
Okay. Well, so your mind is open in terms of whether or not you use reconciliation or whether or not you attach it to the social
well,
safety net.
we still would rather have bipartisanship, whether it's a Democratic president or Republican president.
But you probably won't have it, so you'll consider these options. Is all I'm saying. I want to ask you,
and it's very, very, very important.
Absolutely. The House voted on Friday to hold former Trump ally Steve Bannon in criminal contempt of Congress for ignoring a subpoena. Do you think people who refuse to comply with congressional subpoenas should be prosecuted by the Justice Department and at the end of the day go to jail?
Yes.
You do?
I do. Well, first of all, this, people say, well, this hasn't happened before. We haven't had an insurrection incited by the President of the United States and one of his toadies having knowledge of, advanced knowledge of that happening. So, in fact, it's important for a number of reasons. It's important for us to find the truth about what happened on January 6th, an assault on our Constitution, our Congress, and our Capitol. But it's all.
That's what I care about, dude. I care about January 6th. I care about Donald Trump, and I care about the dead. Nancy Pelosi is staring down one of the most comprehensive, economic restructuring packages in recent years, okay? It's a fat bill. $3.5 trillion is a good amount, okay? It's not great, but it's still decent. And all she cares to communicate to the American public at the State of the fucking Union, okay? The CNN State of the Union is Donald Trump dead January 6th. I want to fucking video game myself when I hear about this shit, okay? It's 1.75 trillion now. Okay. Dude, this guy literally is like, just like, okay, fuck off, dude.
Also important in terms of the separation of power and the checks and balances of the Constitution, which is the genius of the Constitution.
Absolutely.
Like, also, this betrays the original fucking idea that she claimed to care about, which was, we need to focus on bipartisanship. Like, there is a bipartisan way out of this. It's like, how is there a bipartisan way out of this when on the other side, congressional investigations are showing that like Republicans in the White House were collaborating and coordinating with the January 6th riots? How are those people that are supposed to be terrorists and the worst people that are like as bad as like 9/11 or worse than 9/11, according to some liberals, how are you fucking organizing with those people? You're not. It's a lie. You can't hold on to both of these ideas at the same time, that Republicans are terrorists and they fucking geared up an insurrectionist movement that was like more damaging than 9/11, and then be like, but we also have to fucking work with them when it comes to giving poor people like a little bit more money for having children. You know what I mean? Like, that's so fucking stupid.
For this to happen in this way.
So you're
literally nobody says it's worse than 9/11. Wait, no one has said it's worse than 9/11. Let's Google it. Huffington Post reporter sparks outrage for saying Capitol riot was 1,000 times worse than 9/11. MSNBC guest implies that Capitol riot was worse than 9/11. 9/11 victims outrage over media claims that the Capitol riot was worse than 9/11. George W. Bush perfectly tied 9/11 to the January 6th attack.
Willing, if the committee decides to subpoena Trump, you're willing to have that happen too.
I'm not. They have everything on the table. I don't get involved in the decisions of the committee. But when you say if he should do this and go to jail, well, he'll be tried and see what his
court
court
hearing.
is.
I want you to take a listen to a key moment in which President Biden was talking about voting rights in the CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper the other night. Take a listen.
When it comes to voting rights, just so I'm clear, though, you would entertain the notion of doing away with the filibuster on that one issue. Is that correct?
And maybe more.
So that is President Biden saying that he is willing to
Did
entertain
you just say, yes, the renowned liberal George W. Bush? Like, as a joke, like, because George W. Bush is, like, conservative, right? That's what you're, like, because he's a Republican. If George W. Bush ran on the Democratic Party, if he could win again, if he could run again and become president again, and he ran as a Democrat, the Democratic Party would literally tell us to vote for him. He could even win the fucking primaries depending on how much media coverage he gets. Guys, we put a fucking carcass in a position of power. I'm sorry. Like, if you don't recognize how powerful earned media and organic, like, advocacy is within, like, every fucking outlet that you get your information from, for the otherwise, like, completely oblivious American voters, I don't know what else to tell you. Joe Biden literally won on Super Tuesday in states that he didn't even have a fucking office in, okay? In states that he had never stepped foot in. How do you think that happened? And if you think that, the media is not like on board with a fucking Republican running as a Democrat, I don't know what to tell you. They literally, some were advocating for voting for Bloomberg.
Of getting rid of the filibuster for Voting Rights Act and maybe for other things as well. Do you agree with him on that one issue, that at the end of the day, having some sort of voting rights bill is more important than preserving the filibuster, at least for that one vote?
The most important vote right now in the Congress of the United States is the vote to respect the sanctity of the vote, the fundamental basis of our democracy. So if there were one vote that the filibuster could enable to go forward, that would be the vote. And it enables so much more because we're talking about stopping the suppression of the vote and the nullification of the elections. We're talking about redistricting in a way that is fairer and may not benefit Democrats, but it might open up some of these Republican seats. It talks about stopping the big, dark, crushing special interest money and empowers the grassroots. And then, in addition to that, the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. John Lewis wrote the first 300 pages of the first bill. Mr. Manchin has weighed in. The compromise that they voted on last week is perfect.
Yeah, they literally added a fucking compromise for Joe Manchin into a bill that, like, never, like, this is how you know nobody gives a fuck about Joe Manchin and the Republican Party beyond, like, playing the role of a spoiler, because Joe Manchin was like, I'm the moderate here. We need to add a voter ID provision into this, okay? And the Democrats were like, sure, let's do it. Fuck it. Like, why not? So what happened? Not a single Republican voted for it, and they said they were going to filibuster it. So it didn't pass through. So we took a fucking, we compromised with a, invisible enemy that does not even care to actually compromise and ultimately only cares about tanking it. Like, I don't even care. If they added a voter ID provision into the bill, it's fine. Okay? Sure, whatever. As long as the national holiday stuff and as long as the ease of access for early voting and vote by mail initiatives are passed through, then I'm fine. Fuck it, right? But even then, it doesn't matter. It literally does not matter because no Republican was ever going to vote for it.
Good, and but he didn't get any Republican votes.
So it's worth it to you.
Well, no, it's fundamental to our democracy.
Right.
This is fundamental. Now, mind you, just to remind, when what's his name was president and the
Donald Trump
Republicans were in power, Mitch McConnell pulled back the filibuster to enable, with simple majorities, 3 justices to go to the Supreme Court for life.
Bro, she said, what's his name, dude? It's so good. So fucking good, dude.